Good problems you're having these days. I've heard you raised money. I've heard the team is growing. What's happening? What's happening at Blue Learn? What's happening at your YouTube channel?
Oh yeah, last couple of months have been pretty crazy because we never thought that a side project could be turned into a startup.
Does Blue has any other significance other than, of course, being like a simple name and coming from a panicking situation? You had a personal brand, a very strong one, right? You had a following of about 100k plus on YouTube and a good following on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And then you started up. But tell me very, very honestly, before you started making this personal brand, were there plans of starting up, or did this happen as you went along in the journey? You're extremely wealthy on paper, right? And I hope this only grows. But how important is actual real money to you?
Calm down before you stress up the groove. The energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking to? Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I stand tall like I'm on my tiptoes.
Building a community of 45,000 plus students, and that to an active community, is very, very hard. A lot of big startups have been trying to do so. They are pushing a lot of money per ho nahi pa raha. But this team has done it. Today I talked to the co-founder of Blue Learn, Harish. It was such an interesting conversation. बहुत ज़्यादा मज़ा आया. He is very, very young. I learned so much from him. I'm leaving this podcast on a super inspiring note. बहुत कुछ सीखा है personally, बहुत enjoy करा, and I'm sure if you are somebody who is in their 20s, this is a gold mine. Do listen to this episode. A lot of learnings on communities, startups, and content creation. Also, इस podcast के छोटे छोटे bites भी upload on our other channel. यहाँ पे या यहाँ पे कहीं तो link होगा. I button है, click कर दो, जाके देख लो यार. Okay, back to the podcast. Do like, share, and comment. Hey Harish, welcome to the CNTC show. How are you doing?
I'm doing Ayush. Been a long day, so yeah, it's a good ending on a good note with this podcast.
Good problems you're having these days. I've heard you raised money. I've heard the team is growing. What's happening? What's happening at Blue Learn? What's happening at your YouTube channel?
Oh yeah, last couple of months have been pretty crazy because we never thought that a side project could be turned into a startup. Like it just happened so fast that even right now we're still in shock. Like, kya ho gaya? From a team of like 5 people, we expanded to 13. We had some of the best investors come in and back us. And then also in terms of product, we turned from a Telegram/WhatsApp group into like a good web app. So yeah, it's been exciting. And for those of you who don't know, we run a student community called Blue Learn. It's India's largest higher ed community. We have around 45,000 students from across 3,000 different schools and colleges. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Wow, dude, this is massive, especially the expansion, and we'll come to that in a second. But what I wanted to understand was what's happening in the company itself. Communities are all the rage right now. Learning from communities, learning within communities is everything, right? And you have been able to build, not just build, but able to sustain a really cool community. Walk me through the process. Walk me through the process when this was just an idea in probably your head to now what it has become eventually.
Yeah, sure. So the way it started was that I had a YouTube channel, a very small YouTube channel with around, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 subscribers. And I thought, I want to interact with my audience straight up, right? Like on YouTube comments, it's not really productive. So I made a Telegram group and I was like, hey, if you're my subscriber, just join in and we can start chatting. And then eventually I was like, I don't want to keep this centered towards me. That will be kind of selfish of me. So let's just turn this into a community where anyone can give answers. Like I did not really want to create a fan group, right? So if anyone wants any help in learning a skill, others who are more experienced could help them out. So that's the way it started. Shreyans and I were like, Shreyans is my co-founder, at Bitsco is my neighbor. We were like, hey, let's just help these students out, because we saw that there was a huge disparity in terms of how much college students knew. Like students at BITS and IITs knew a lot. They were like, hey, there are so many opportunities out there, right? Anirudh Singla started up because he was aware that startup is an option for them. Or maybe you went on with video production because you knew that that's an option for you. But then that's not the case with most colleges. They have a very, very narrow mindset. And then they aren't aware that the internet has opened up a bunch of opportunities for them. So that's the sort of gap that we want to solve for, the knowledge asymmetry. And we just started getting smart people on board who could answer these questions. Eventually, Telegram became hard to scale. We hit 10,000 really quickly in like 4 months or 3 months. So we moved to Discord. And that's where the fun began, because Discord gives you access to voice. So now what that meant was we can have really cool events. It could be music concerts. It could be people practicing debating. It could be, people, it could be open mics. It could be freelancing conclaves, design conclaves, where people interested in these things could come and jam in. So we just created this virtual college of sorts, where, we didn't care about what your JE score was, what your CGPA was. No matter what college you're from, you can just come here, hang out, and feel productive. So that's the way it sort of evolved.
Pretty cool, man. And there's no barrier to entry. Anybody can join.
Okay, there's no barrier to entry, but majority of them are between 18 to 22, tier 2, tier 3 colleges.
Right. And I remember at a point when we started interacting, this was called Clinify.
Yeah.
And I remember I did see some courses there, right, which were linear edtech courses, if you could call them that, where one person teaches you in a probably like either a workshop fashion or a pre-recorded course. What was that all about? So and from that point to this Discord, are we still focusing on that, or is it just the community now?
Right now we are making it community centered. Like initially, we want to play around with monetization and see how things would pan out. So we started something called cohort based classes, wherein, you could have an expert. I'll give you an example of a design cohort. We got in a Microsoft designer, and he taught 30 students over a period of a month how to become a good product designer, right? And in the end, they could learn industry grade skills. So that was a proposition, but then we felt that impact wasn't massive. Like we could only coach 25 students at a time. So we wanted something that's far more scalable, where we could reach to many people at once. That's why we moved towards something called clubs, which is, it's just like college clubs, but amplified a lot more. So you could have something called the English Club for English enthusiasts. You can have design club. And once we have a bunch of these clubs, we sort of dive deep and introduce cohorts, introduce mentorship, introduce social features where they could meet other club members and things like that in that particular club itself. So that's the product that we are envisioning, having a lot of interesting clubs that people could be part of, and then building deep relationships among community members within these clubs.
That's very fascinating, yaar. Because now I see right now there is a dependency on another company, which is Discord. And I'm sure at the back of, the entire team's head is, how do we lose this dependency? What's the plan, and how fast are we moving towards that plan? Like, when can we actually see things happening?
So it's already happening. Like if you check out our web app, we are trying to mimic a lot of features, but then at the same time, we don't want to build a community platform that competes with Discord, right? We want to sort of complement Discord. So Discord will always stay. It's where communities thrive. Discord is best at helping communities thrive. So we want to leave that problem to them. We want to focus more on what our core proposition is, which is to make the community way more productive and provide things that we can't necessarily build on Discord. I'll give you an example. So now we have an event roster, right? Every single day, we have a bunch of events happening. Like today, we had Rishabh Shekhar from Pepper, come in and give a talk. We'll have Sambhav Jain next week. And then we have, design conclaves or gaming tournaments, or, you could have maybe music nights, things like this happening. Now, it's very difficult for us to display all of these events in an organized way on Discord because it's just threads. So these are the places where the website comes into play. Now on the website, you can see a huge menu of all the events that are going to happen. And whatever you're interested in, you just tap on it, adds it to your calendar. It comes on your profile and things like that. The second feature that we were trying to work on was building relationships among club members, because it was getting really tough for club members to know each other. So we just made a member repository, made people to sign up. So within, I think, a week, we got around 6,000 signups on the website. So now everyone has a profile. Every community member has a profile that says what they're interested in. And this way, it just helps us make community members interact with each other much simpler. So these are a couple of things we're experimenting with, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's like mixing education with social media. So it becomes like social media for education. Every time you visit Instagram, you feel guilty, but then you come here, you shouldn't. So
like how, when you mention different menus, right? And it's not just hard education, right? Where you teach like a physics concept. It's also music, it's also arts, it's also things like entrepreneurship, which are very broader in nature. You can't teach entrepreneurship in like 7 chapters. That wouldn't do justice to a broader concept like that. And the same goes for all the creative arts. How I see this is how we used to have fests in our college, and we used to get like a huge menu, and at the same time there were different things happening in different sort of arenas. You enter an arena and you probably experience that, or you learn from that. So in my head, this is like an online fest going on and at all times. Just here we are also learning, and not just chilling and having fun.
And also want to add to your Clinify point. So we were called Clinify before, now we are called BlueLearn. And, eventually, like a lot of people were saying it sounds like a medical company. And once we were pitching to Kunal Bell of Titan, and he said, you have to change the name right now here itself, because as you grow as a brand, if a third person listens to the word Clinify, they'll be like, it's a pharmacy, it's a medical company. So we don't want that to happen. And that's why, the moment he said that, you were like, abhi to karna hi hoga. So we went with something really simple, BlueLearn. It's because our belief is that Indians cannot pronounce hard names. So we had a bunch of them. We had over 400 names, but then all of them were really complicated, right? So we wanted someone in a remote village in Bihar to also spell it out. And that's why we just went with BlueLearn.
Tell me some of the rejected ones.
Octagon, Visit. There was another one called... We also came up with a lot of learns. So Yellow Learn, Lemon Learn, Pink Learn, like a bunch of these combinations. So yeah, that was fun. I still have those domain names, by the way. I bought 5 domain names, panicking that someone else might buy it before we decide on it.
Does Blue has any other significance other than, of course, being like a simple name and coming from a panicking situation?
Not really, but then it just helps us establish trust. Like whenever you look at the color blue, it just sort of helps you trust the website more. And being an education product, trust is kind of important.
That makes sense. For the audience, Harish has become way more serious compared to the last time you met him. Now he has to act all CEO and founder for the audience. Last time he was way more, okay, let's have a conversation. Now he's like, okay, I'm gonna answer in structured ways, in structured pointers. But really good to see this growth, man. It's so inspiring, especially there are 2 ways I look at people, right? One is, of course, from my community, now that we are talking about community, and all of us, right? People around us, people, friends, and of course, people from the same college, and then, people outside. And this community, when somebody blooms from this community, you feel like you're part of their journey somehow, right? And I may be a very small part of it, but you feel proud. When I saw that you fundraised, and even before that, I was really proud of the channel that you had built, right? And here's my next question, which I've been dying to ask. Now, a lot of founders these days, they create a product. And because I talk to a lot of founders, right, everybody comes up to me and tells them, this is from the biggest of the companies to to newer startups, that, hey, Ayush, we have built a company, we have millions of dollars, now we want to build a personal brand because that's all the rage right now. You had a personal brand, a very strong one, right? You had a following of about 100K plus on YouTube and a good following on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And then you started up. Now tell me very, very honestly, before you started making this personal brand, were there plans of starting up, or did this happen as you went along in the journey?
So I always knew that if I have to start up, I'll tell you why this happened, right? So initially we ran this startup called Hulock, which was a complete B2B sales company. And we sold chatbots, so AI-based chatbots for a lot of companies. And we got a small initial set of clients of fertility clinics, e-commerce sites, and things like that. But then after hitting those 2-3 clients, we faced a huge issue of client shortage. At one point, Shreyans and I used to cold call like hundreds of businesses, cold email, just ask all these bits alumni that we knew. But then we were struggling to find clients, right? And that's when I realized that like every single day we asked ourselves this question: are we building something that people want? The Y Combinator template wala question. And the answer was no, because we really did not interact with our audiences, right? We never interacted with, manufacturers or other fertility clinics as often to understand what the core problem was. So we shut that down. And in the meantime, YouTube was blowing up. So for me, initially when I started off YouTube, it was just me vlogging around BITS Goa, taking a camera. If I'm walking to the lecture hall, I'll just film that. it wasn't the only purpose was to bring bits video content online. There were no startup motives behind it. But then one thing that I noticed was that people start putting in their problems in the comment section. Like a very common problem at that time when I used to make bits content was, how do you score well in bitsat, right? So that was a very common problem that we saw. So a bunch of friends and I were like, hey, since you're from bits and since you have scored amazing at bitsat, why not make this community of bitsat enthusiasts and maybe sell them something like bitsat mock tests. And one of my friends tried it out. I was like, hey, you can take my audience. And I don't know, within like a week or two, we made like 50,000 in revenue. And plus there were like some 5,000 people in a Telegram group, and it started working. So we were like, hey, now we've identified this way where we somehow build an audience, we ask them what they want, and then just build it out for them. That's way simpler than building a product and then hoping one day someone's going to buy it, right? So that's the strategy we followed. But then again, I wouldn't really say that's the only reason I run the YouTube channel. I genuinely love making videos. Like even if I get paid zero, today, every single video of mine is I use copyright music in every single video because I don't care about the money that I get from YouTube. I just want the viewers to have an amazing experience when they watch it. So that's like 90% of the reason is because I genuinely love making videos. I posted my first video when I was in third grade. It was about how to make a paper aeroplane. And then even in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, I posted videos, no motive, just love making videos. But then again, 10% of the reason is definitely because I know the benefits of having an audience and therefore, just taking it forward.
How familiar are you with tech?
Oh, I have to be super familiar with tech. Like even today, I have to decide which APIs to use for video conferencing, have chats with other vendors, because the ecosystem is so tech driven that if you don't know code, if you don't know how basic services work, then you'll just be left behind. And being in the startup ecosystem, it also helps in raising investor money and things like that. You do need a tech co-founder, someone who understands products. So definitely that's the reason I started learning to code last year, and that just changed a lot of things for me. Building products and telling people what to build becomes much easier when you know how to code yourself. So yeah, that was the number one reason why I learned to code, and has been super helpful.
Your co-founder is a tech guy, like a core tech guy.
No, I handle most of the product work. He handles more of like operations and things like that.
Pretty cool. So what's your core tech team like? Who does most of the work? The founding team members, or do you have contractual basis, or how does it work?
So from day one, we said we would never have contract basis tech team. Like we should never outsource tech. And the way we hire is that the way we hired a founding team, with each person, we have worked for at least 6 months on a project before. And only after that, we sort of gave them equity and made them part of the founding team. And I think that's super important, because only then, more than talent, it's about how well you vibe with them, right? Are they your kind of people? Is that a person with whom you would love to work for the next 10 years? And that was the only criteria that I sort of looked at. I still remember Darshil, who now leads a front-end team. When I don't know, 12 months back, I put out an Instagram story saying, hey, I'm trying to build this website. Does anyone want to help me out? And then he replied saying, Mujhe HTML or CSS aata hai, can I help you out? At that time, I was learning HTML, basics of code. And I was like, yeah, sure. And right now, he's better than any Bitsy and React developer in their third or fourth year, right? So like that's the progress he has had. And it's just insane to look at it. So there are those two criteria that we look at. One is how well they vibe with us, and B, how fast they learn. And yeah, that's the way the founding team is.
Very interesting. I mean, this is definitely pushing me to learn code. I've always been conflicted, right? Because I run a service company, and we face very, very different problems. But I know the kind of, and of course we'll talk about this in detail. This is not about me, but definitely I've always wanted to learn code, and this really fascinates me. What I want to understand was, you mentioned that tech made it easy to fundraise. Let's come to that. Why fundraise? Why not bootstrapped? Does this product require fundraising, or was it because growth faster hoga, ya fir some other reason?
The number one reason why we fundraised was because we got into this incubator called 100X, right? And there, Sanjay Mehta, who was the first angel investor in Oyo. He was speaking and he said, when you're running a bootstrap business, not necessarily all businesses, but a lot of bootstrap businesses face this. After a while, it reaches a stale state where you don't have this intrinsic motivation to do well or grow the business. And that sort of hit a chord with me because we were reaching that point in terms of Blueland, right? We weren't making a lot of revenue. I think at that time we were making around a lakh a month sort of revenue. But then still, it wasn't really. It was just by selling those cohort-based courses. And once he said this, we felt that even we might reach that point, and we really wanted to experiment, and we wanted the resources to experiment and try out something really cool which could actually become the next product, and to get that leeway to be able to build a team around it and to get that mental space to experiment. That was the number one reason why we thought of going for fundraising. And also Lightspeed has been an amazing investor. Like, they don't interfere with the business at all. Like, their philosophy has been founders know the best, so we're going to stay off. And you guys find PMF, you guys find experiment over the next few months, and then we'll help you take that forward. So yeah, we found investors who matched what we were thinking, and therefore we went ahead.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And why I asked this question was that I talk a lot about wealth. I read a lot about wealth. I want to understand how important wealth it is to you. How important wealth is to you, and how important do you think earning like hard cash, not paper wealth. Right now, you're extremely wealthy on paper, right? And I hope this only grows. But how important is actual real money to you?
Mm-hmm. So in that terms, Shreyans and I have been slightly lucky to come from a little privileged background. So my parents don't necessarily have to depend on me to serve food on the table. So that makes me really independent, right? And that's what I always wanted to be. I wanted to sort of move out, live alone, and then build things on my own. So with that said, for me, at least at this point, our expenses aren't a lot and our risk appetite is massive because we live like cockroaches. We just we don't have, our maid cooks us lunch and dinner at once so that we could save money and things like that, right? For breakfast we just have cereal, so we just can live on very less money. It's totally fine. Vinny sleeps on a mattress, so one of our founding team members. So it's just very easy for us to live without a lot of money. And we were like, hey, we're just 2021, so why not just live the next 5 years in really bad conditions, but then enjoy and ultimately have that feeling of ownership that we tried and built something. So yeah, in terms of money, we don't really need a lot of money. That's why we're fine as long as I have enough to go out there and eat at a restaurant or something like that. Totally fine.
Love this. Love the energy, dude. I've been following all the vlogs. I for some reason I'm a big fan of vlogs, and I started watching yours, and I love you following the entire David Dobrik 420 thing. Really cool. Best part is it starts and ends, and I always have fun. Always puts a smile to my face no matter whatever you're putting out. Just very inspiring to see a bunch of motivated people working on a product. Just makes my day. So genuinely wanted to talk about this. Keep creating that content, man. Like, not just me, but I'm sure way more people feel inspired when they watch that piece of content. And I love it that monetization is not important to you, so that you can use all the nice music tracks and have fun and make the experience definitely better. Awesome. What I want to talk about is, as a company, sorry. Okay. Sure, it's 9:40. Let's, awesome. 2-3 questions and then we should, yeah. As a founder's life is what I call is a mess. I've met founders who are running huge companies, and they always fail to somehow manage their life, right? When I say fail, I'm not saying they fail at finishing the to-do list, but there's always something that is left behind. What is that one thing in your case? And if I'm making an assumption, then if you're able to sustain a balance, then how are you doing that?
Okay, in my case, it's very weird because I don't really feel stressed because of the work that I do. I mean, on some days I'm overburdened, but then I don't know. I just love doing what I'm doing, so it doesn't really feel like too much work. Um, and we are quite organized as a startup, right? Because we don't really care when you do work. You can do it either at 9 a.m. or Keenan, as he's nocturnal, he does work at 2 a.m. And that's totally fine. So we have this 9:30 a.m. Scrum where all of us jot down our tasks on Asana saying, hey, these are my tasks for today and I'm going to complete this. No one says when they're going to complete it, right? So at the end of the day, we just assume that you have completed it. That's the only meeting we have for the day. And I don't know, the team is good enough that they complete all those tasks. And then once in a while, we have these, once a week, we have these brainstorming sessions where we decide how next week looks like. So, all these whiteboarding and all that fancy stuff. And then based off the brainstorming session, we again take some tasks and put on Asana. So we work on a very task-based system. And at least for me and majority of our team, we wrap up work by like 6:37 in most cases. And then later on, just spend some time with my family, my friends, and we just go out as well. So I think, at least for me, I'm living a very balanced life. But then maybe it's because we are really, really early stage and don't really have too much responsibilities. As we grow, as the team size grows, as the number of members grow, that might change. But at least for now, it's pretty balanced.
Right. What I was trying to look for is the second part of the answer when you said your personal life. I think work life, because there is pressure. I mean, I'm not saying there's stress, but there is pressure, right? There is pressure for you to raise another round, a bigger one, so that on paper the wealth grows for all the. That's the only way an investor can make sure that the company is growing, right? Right. 5 to 30. That's a massive hiring change, man.
Oh, 5 to 13, 1 3.
Oh, still massive, almost 3x. What was this process like?
So first of all, a lot of these people are not full time. A lot of these people are just people who help us organize better events and keep the community thriving. And we really think that a lot of enthusiastic college students can do this well. So a majority of that forms, college students, at least like 7 to 8. The rest come from the rest is pretty simple. So the way we hire, at least for us, hiring has not been an issue because we hire from a community itself, and a lot of people want to work for us. So that makes things way easier. We get access to like the top talent in India. We notice how these guys perform. They might help us organize events, and I'll just check how enthusiastic they are for like 2-3 months, and then we'll just roll out them an offer saying, hey, do you want to join us full time? So that's the way we've been looking at it. So these were people who really impacted the community. Like even if we removed one person from the equation, the engagement levels would just drop. So that's the reason we want to retain them. And even after they graduate, we would love to have them full time. So,
dude, that's amazing. This is probably the smoothest hiring answer I have heard, because as much as I love building a team, I think hiring has been the toughest job. Not that like I'm complaining, because it is supposed to be very crucial, but this is pretty cool, man. What I want to understand is you're a content creator, and that does take up a bunch of your time. But what were some of the tangible effects when you hit like 100K? Did life change? Did perception of you in people's mind change? When I say people, this is of course people around you who knew you before you even start creating content. Tangibly, kya changed?
Nothing changed, to be honest. In fact, it tanked. So the moment I hit 100K, my growth rate just tanked. Like earlier, I used to get 10,000, 15,000 subscribers a month. But the moment I hit 100K, my subscriber count dropped to like 2-3K a month, which was a huge hit. I was like, hey, is the type of content that I'm creating not clickbaity enough? And I started experimenting a lot, and I'm glad that I have been experimenting. I did get sad, but then I didn't stop experimenting. So experimented with personal life content, experimented with like general content, like top 6 non-coding jobs that you should try out. But then none of that was working out. So I was like, hey, I started off with vlogging. When the pandemic hit, why not just go back to vlogging? And then tried vlogging out, which is apparently working out. And that's something I love to make because it's effortless. All like there's just so much of random shit happening in the house that all I have to do is just film it, right, and put it online. Plus, editing it is super easy. I just have to compile the clips. So I was like, hey, minimal efforts, maximum results. So let's just go ahead with that. That's been my content with our journey. Now, maybe vlogs might not work out tomorrow. So I'll have to figure out some other way of engaging the audience. So yeah, and in terms of how people perceive me, it's not really changed because I don't pretend to be someone else after I hit 100K. It's been the same old dumb Harish. So yeah. Maybe in terms of how external people who have never met me feel might change. Like they might be like, oh, this guy's popular and blah, blah, blah. But then the moment they meet me, they're like, okay, it's just another random kid.
Pretty cool. You mentioned that there's a lot of things happening at the house and you record them. Does it ever feel that there's too much of your life online? Does it feel scary? Does it feel anxious that there's just like everybody knows, this is how we live and this is how we do things and whatnot?
Oh yeah, that the feeling of dropping the ball always stays because now people are like, oh, they have reached like this peak point. Now it's gonna be like now they're gonna grow really fast and they'll become a unicorn one day. Blah blah blah. That's what people expect of you. But then the moment things start going down south, no one's gonna be there for you. So that thing really stays, and we should be conscious enough and not get carried away with all the hype around. So yeah, as a team, we always make sure that after the press release and things like that, we've been bombarded with a lot of appreciation messages from really people. But then right before everything happened, we were like, hey, let's just calm down. We still haven't found product market fit. Let's do that first. Let's stay lean as a team. Let's figure this thing out, and then just grow internally as a team. And we know for ourselves what we are building. Whatever people say, just say thanks. That's enough. Don't just get carried away. So yeah, we just want to stay humble in a way, just enforcing that throughout the team.
What I've seen is a lot of people, for them, funding is like done. We're done and dusted, and we've killed it. And although it's a big milestone, I've been very close to a couple of founders and I've assisted them through the entire process. It's an excruciating process, especially when things started turning sideways, when your pitch decks are being rejected.
I didn't sleep for 3 days straight.
See, and I've seen both sides. I've seen a side where a fundraise happened in just 2 weeks, super smooth, nothing happened, and then a fundraise that took about a year. What I liked about how you guys made the announcement was that I think I also went through your co-founders post. This is just a milestone, but that's it. And that's it. It's only a number on the table, and I loved that approach, primarily because as an outsider, it reassures me that they're still working as hard. This money is only fuel to propel the rocket further. So loved that attitude, man. Okay, a lot of entrepreneurs growing in the scene. Tell me some of your favorites. Tell me 5 of your favorite entrepreneurs, people that you usually look out for. Okay, what are they up to? What are they doing? Probably ask for guidance from them.
Ayush Wadhwa, Ankur Variku, Aves, Mehul Mohan, Mohit and Gaurav. These are all Vitsian folks. The reason why I say these is because I could easily say Steve Jobs or Gaurav Munjal. But then again, at least for me, inspirations come from people whom I've met, people whom I interact with a lot, because that's the only way to have context, right? Like Anirudh, I've been seeing his journey since the beginning. So I have a lot of context about the advice that he gives me. If I take advice from Gaurav Munjal, who's running a unicorn, that might not work out for me at all. So at least when people ask me for inspirations, it's just people around me. And yeah, really look up to you guys.
Thanks, man. That I wasn't expecting my name at all. I think you're just flattering me because this is my podcast, but I'll take the compliment even if I don't deserve it. Awesome. So there's this section in the podcast where so this is like me trying to, so I love Bollywood. So I'm just trying to be Karan Johar in my podcast. We'll do a rapid fire. But before we do that, I have this question that I've been asking everybody. If you could just rewind back in your life, what's that one thing which you'll change?
I mean, I'm going to give the cliche answer, which is I haven't changed anything. Things have been working out pretty well. I made a lot of dumb mistakes, but fine with that.
Dude, you'll be surprised people don't give this answer, because what people don't realize is that once you change something in the past, your current present state changes. And they always go back and they're like, yes, this is a mistake. So I always look for this answer, that like nothing, and it gives me a sense ki where they are is probably they're pretty much okay with it.
Oh, I thought 90% would say this, nothing.
So this is I think the fifth or sixth time I've asked this question. It's not like the other answers are wrong, of course not.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move to the rapid fire round now, bro. Harish, this is a no BS round. If you don't answer the question, your funding is reversed, and you have to answer it in like 3-4 seconds. So like get ready, and you have to answer each and every question. Are you sure you can do that?
Yeah, definitely.
Name one startup that inspires you.
Pepper content.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Watching Netflix.
Come on, dude. That's a like
Okay.
that's a I'm in a boardroom meeting and I don't want Netflix. It's capped at 15 minutes a day. No, dude, give me a better answer.
Having choco chip ice cream every time I visit the supermarket.
Okay, thing that you hate about entrepreneurship,
Random people start expecting too much of you.
and thing that you love about content creation.
Gets you clout.
Tell me 3 favorite books or movies depending upon whichever you consume most.
Okay, it's typical cliche. 0 to 1. Then there is We Are the Nerds, which is about the Reddit story. And then 21 Rules of Management.
21 Rule. That's the first time I'm hearing about that book. I will read that. यार एक moment बता अपनी life में which completely changed things for me, like for you of course, like that one moment.
Oh, okay. So we were gonna apply for internships. We got 2 offers. One was from Cred, the other one was from Leap Finance. We said no to them. If we did say yes to them and we got engaged, Lulan would not have been there.
I was nice. This was the best answer. One life mantra, yaar. If you had to live by just one thought, what would that be?
Just go with the flow.
Go with the flow. And if you had to create a rumor about yourself, what would you do?
Harish is cocky.
Oh, okay. I think you have to lose that serious face, man. Otherwise, people are gonna seriously think that this is the case. But wow, lovely conversation, dude. बहुत मज़ा आया. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode. Do follow Harish.
Thanks a lot, Ayush.